Yesterday was day 20 of my fruit fast, as well as day 1 of a 3-day Shivambu fast. I tried recording a video, and not only was there a glitch with it, but it turned out not to be the right video anyway. Yesterday was Friday, a day which I devoted to connecting with Venus. Meaning my intention was to tune in to the sensuous presence of existence, to the full somatic experience of my being, to the, let us say, finer pleasures of being in these human bodies as soulful beings. I'm also going to say there's a part of me that really doesn't feel like making this video because I discovered it's not just about pleasure and love and beauty and passion. It's also about all the ways in which I actually don't make space for those things in my life. It was a very potent and deep reminder of how these things are lacking in my life. Now, my Venus placement is in Sagittarius in my 11th house, which I have learned is about deep and fulfilling social connections, relational interactions built around shared values and grand visions and goals, community, and love in acts of co-creation, prayerfully woven towards the building of a new world, more in alignment with God. And while I spent 20 minutes recording a video that didn't really record, talking about connecting with Venus through artistic pleasure and diving into the sensorial experience of the body and connecting with those fine and refined pleasures of life, I realized that while I do make time for these things, in some ways there are some aspects, particularly when it comes to relation and connection, wherein not only do I not really make space and time for it, I am making some time and space for it, and I'm getting better at it, but there's a part of me that wants that connection, wants to create these things, but then actually pulls back out of a fear of them. Which deep down there seems to be a fear of love. a fear of the fullness of love, with Venus being the luminary of love. And there seems to be a lack of self-love in my life. It is there. But when it comes to connecting with the full and infinite depth of my heart and the femininity of my being and the true emotional depth that I carry as myself, and there is a massive and tremendous depth there, it's a self-relationship that requires work, and the necessity of more work in that area of my life is also reflected back to me in the external relationships. So a brief pause here. Because not only am I doing these fasting experiments, but if you don't know, I am on day 3. I'm speaking of day 3 of a 7-day challenge to myself to discover myself more deeply. And as I said earlier, there's a part of me that doesn't want to make this video because I'm speaking of tremendous vulnerability. I'm speaking of deep pain. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's not all easy. It's not my Jupiterian expansion, which I was feeling so tremendously the other day. It is a darker and other side, which is an equal part of the journey of transformation. We must witness and face these parts of ourselves in areas of our life which feel like they are lacking. And we must look at the ways and the places where love is lacking, where alignment is out of whack, where needs are not being met, where there is a certain blueprint in my astrology breathed by God into my essence, and as the flower that I am not fully feeding that part of myself, and therefore there's some part of myself that is not thriving. The witnessing of these parts of ourselves is an opportunity to learn and feel and understand, okay, what is needed here? What can I do to then mend and heal this aspect of my life? What can I do to invite more harmony and serenity and healing into this aspect of my life? And this is not merely an intellectual question. This is something that requires time and energy and depth to truly feel into what's present. What is truly presenting itself? What is truly communicating here? Yeah. And I got to at least one core of it, there's some part of me that yearns to be heard and understood. Because when we feel understood, we feel like we're not alone, and we feel held in times when we do feel alone. It is a reminder that we are not alone, that we are held in compassion, for someone else understands our pain. Perhaps even feels it. And this is a deeper aspect of my Venusian placement about relationality. And some part of me needing to be around people who share a common vision and who want to create and build around that vision. And I have a little bit of that in my life. The men's group, the fellowship that I'm in, with whom I am doing this fast right now, this 3-day fast. While it is online, I have been absolutely tremendously supported by this powerful group of 100 men. And it has been around the shared vision and purpose. And this is an aspect of my life that is helping me come alive. But we're all also experiencing in that fellowship, I don't know about all of us, but I've been in conversation with men who are going through the similar thing as I am, which is the in-person, embodied, in real time aspect of this. Wanting a village, wanting community, wanting true and real relationships which are not built upon mutual extraction, not built upon creating the appearances of, oh, look how spiritual I am. Look at us creating these offerings. Come to my offering, it's going to be really potent. Much as it will be commodified. There's nothing wrong inherently with offerings. But when our offerings and when our relationships become transactional and not about the pure presence and depth of human being and the co-creative elements of coming together to live this experience of being human. There is, in this age of technology, like I am in pain at the way that technology seems to distort things. It's a whole deeper topic. I had something else to say which I lost in my little ramblings. One moment. this isn't what I was going to say, but I want to be heard. I want to be held. I want to be seen. I want to be understood. And I want to be loved. And if I look for these things first and primarily outside of myself, then I'm not coming to those places from a place of wholeness. And there was a reminder yesterday. The felt experience of the day. Which is simply that external validation should not be a necessity when it comes to the depth of the love which ultimately I can offer myself through devotion to God and to God's eternal love within my heart. And there is a lacking of ritualistic and prayerful connection with that aspect of my life, with God Himself, which allows for that love to flow into my being and for me to then operate from a place of divine inspiration, which conjures the visions, which conjures the loving magnetic frequency, which can then attract the resonant people who not only are operating on that frequency of authenticity, but who may be operating also on the frequency of shared vision. So that I am witnessing, like, okay, I feel this pain, I feel this wound. That is, I don't have my people who have a shared vision and a relational network of authentic love in person or otherwise. To which I then ask myself, well, do I have my own vision for my own self? Am I guided by my purpose and my vision? And am I offering myself the love that I yearn for? Am I allowing myself ritualistically to connect more fully with the full somatic awareness of my body and of my heart? And listen, this is not to say that I am entirely lacking in this realm. I do offer myself a lot of self-love. And I am in a process, specifically like with this channel, of uncovering and shedding the layers in order to uncover my purpose. And I see it coming through, breaking through the cocoon. It is happening. But how can I do more? And how can I use this perception of what feels like wounds to then guide me towards the behaviors that heals the wounds, brings out the purpose, and magnetizes not only the love as within, so without, which I yearn for, and the understanding and the holding and the compassion and the care. How do I offer these things to myself? And then how do I act from a place of purpose in my life that then calls these things into my life so that the mirrors of my reality reflect back to me the level of inner work which I have done and which I do more deeply. So I want one thing to be clear. I'm not pouring all of this out to dwell and bask and drown in victimhood, in the woe is me of my pain. I am processing the reality of my pain and guiding myself into an alchemy of that pain. Simultaneously doing so publicly and vulnerably for anyone who might be experiencing, who likely is experiencing, very similar kinds of pain in a world where detachment and avoidance and disconnection and extraction are the norm. Abnormal as it is. Whereupon I am not seeking to magnetize from this place of pain. I am not seeking to call in the people who can hold me in that pain, to heal me. I'm not calling in saviors, but I am calling in the people who are devoted to the uncovering of their visions, to the uncovering of their purpose, to the shedding of layers of pain within themselves, towards the co-creation of relational networks, of shared vision, and actualization of being. And as I shed these layers, and I learn to hold and witness and understand and love myself, then so too will I call people in, and ideally call people in who are also on that wavelength and who have done the similar amounts of work. And anyone who sees at any point of their journey any stage that they are in resonance with, they can benefit from that at whatever stage they are. And then enter the cycle of transformation and evolution towards the awakening of shared missions and their own missions from within. This is a journey of self-discovery. And it does require touching upon those places which are in the most pain, because those are the places which, when clung to, prevent the soul's true apotheosis, while simultaneously being the fertile soil within which the composting of their deaths can then feed and nourish the soulful flower's bloom. So, final ripples of winter's deaths as spring's resurrection comes into being. I have my doubts about their finality, for it seems my life is always happening in these cycles of death and resurrection. And that is part of it. And that is a part of it that requires deep love and reverence. So, I pray these words were as helpful to you as they were to me, that they may help you process certain elements of your being, that you learned something from them, or at the very least that you enjoyed them. Now, I am recording this about Friday, the day of Venus, but today does happen to be Saturday, the day of Saturn. So now that I've processed a lot of this Venus energy, I am also transitioning into the Saturnian energy. And I don't know if I am going to do this. Tomorrow, which is Sunday, I'm going into the town south for an ecstatic dance. And that's going to be so glorious. But there was a part of me that wanted to go to that same town today in honor of Saturn to buy a machete, a scythe, to open my coconuts. And as I say it, it almost feels like ritualistically really important that I do it today as part of Saturn. So anyway, stay tuned for tomorrow's video, which will discuss my Saturnian journey of 7-day transformation. And I tell you, Saturn in my life, Saturn and I have not gotten along. So maybe this is a time of mending and of healing and of, actually, maybe I'll just transition right into making my Saturn video. I have villainized Saturn. I have villainized the black cube. I have villainized the temporal constraints of my finitude. And perhaps this is a opportunity to come into terms with my mortality, with time, with the structuring of my days, and with the Saturnian rigidity of this Kali Yuga in which we find ourselves. How can I find a way to perceive this as just a temporary manifestation of composting soil on the grand evolutionary scale of justice, divine justice, which is always, always, always in charge and guiding the world. So anyway, that is a sneak peek for anyone who got this far in the video, this long video. That is going to be some of the talk about Saturn. And there's so much more depth there. So much more depth. Praying for Venusian love to come into your life and mine, that we may be guided to love ourselves, love one another, love the earth, love God, and to do so from places of wholeness, and to do so from places of integrity and reciprocity, and to do so in a way that guides all of those places which are still seeking healing and needing healing, towards the healing and the love which they innately deserve. Yeah. I'm going to leave it at that. And I love you. Thank you for witnessing me and listening. And I pray for an abundance of love in your life.